Welcome back and thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Now we want to dive into a conversation, as I'd mentioned earlier. In recent weeks, we have witnessed a series of arrests, investigations and statements that have ignited fierce debates about the limits of free speech and the space of critical voices in the country. We want to now join Stella Agara virtually, and she is a governance and security analyst. Stella, good evening. It's good to see you. I hope you're well.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me. I'm well and I'm happy to be here.
Karibu sana. So let's just take a look at the events that have happened during this past weekend and specifically zero it in on today. We've seen the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua come out and he has damning claims. He said he received intelligence reports that President Ruto had ordered he be dealt with once and for all. He equally claims that security officers had a plot to plant illegal weapons in his vehicles and those of leaders who supported him. He equally alleged that the president ordered that his personal bodyguards be stripped of their firearms, even though they have licenses. Now, all these are damning allegations. We're yet to ascertain whether it's true or not. But even as you react to them, the question in majority of Kenyans' minds is the criminal justice system being weaponized for political, for political scores?
I'm going to start first by giving an absolute response to your question. And then I'll give my reasons why I believe my answer is correct. My answer is that yes, the criminal justice system is being used for political reasons, and indeed being not just used but abused for political reasons. We had a lot of conversations around the Gen Z protests, and the number of officers who were showing up with masks and cover-ups that then would not allow the citizens to identify the person that was attacking them. And one of the arguments was that that group of people, that kind of people, or people dressed in that way, could even be people who are not of Kenyan nationality. And so the question of who shows up, how they show up, how compromised their uniform is a fundamental issue as far as security is concerned, because it then creates room for somebody to take advantage of the situation and then bring foreign forces to come and attack Kenyans on our soil, which of course is not something that is legally allowed in this nation or any nation anywhere. Number two is the fact that personally, I would never ignore the voice of any politician saying their life is in danger in Kenya. Not even after the promulgation of the new constitution. I knew it used to be a huge threat when a politician said that their life was in danger during Moi's time. We had reasons to panic and we had grounds to ensure that that kind of person is protected. With the promulgation of our new constitution, we hoped that circumstances had changed. And indeed, if any politician said their life was in danger, we could see action from the different security agencies to beef up their security, to ensure that then they're finding ways to protect them a little bit more until the danger is averted. Unfortunately, under this administration, we cannot say that. Politicians say that their lives are in danger, they make noise about their lives being in danger, and nothing is done. This particular person that you're talking about, the former deputy president, this is not the first time he's claiming that his life is in danger. After a few attacks to his meeting, he again wrote and requested that action be taken because he felt that his life was in danger. After the several attacks to his meetings, nothing was done. Indeed, when you see this kind of action, you struggle to make an excuse for the state of not being involved, because then why are they not taking action to protect a former state officer, a former public officer, if he claims that his life is in danger? How much more will it take to protect him? Number two, the third reason is because we have all been privy to what has happened ever since the unveiling of the logo of his party and the conversations that he held with the media afterwards. The interruption of that meeting with the gunshots and everything was supposed to ensure that then that particular unveiling would have been lackluster. But the interviews that followed have quite unruffled a few feathers, and I think those interviews and what he said in those interviews could be the reason why he's being targeted. Is this acceptable in our current situation? No, it is not acceptable. And it is very telling of the kind of games that are going to be played come next election. And so it is no surprise that he said, if the games that we're seeing now continue, then maybe come the next election, 2007 will look like a wedding. Indeed, we are preparing for a very dangerous game if we do not reform how we're engaging in our campaigns, how we're engaging in our politics, and if we do not reform what we value in this nation. Because all of a sudden life does not matter in this nation, all of a sudden safety does not matter in this nation. The only thing that is taking precedence is personal political interest, which unfortunately is not a good place to center a nation and a state on.
And you know, it's not just the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who's cried wolf. I mean, we've seen Trans Nzoia Governor Natembeya. We've equally seen Mumias East Member of Parliament, Peter Salasia, the former Meru Governor, Kawira Mwangaza. They equally, just all of them are saying this is political witch hunt. But it also leads to what you've talked about, the fact that we're seeing a rise in political intolerance way before the campaign period even start. How do we curb that? Because in one way or the other, it's eroding our democracy.
Ashley, the first way to counter this is exactly what the former deputy president is doing. I think naming, shaming, exposing the people behind these actions is extremely critical, because from my studies of this kind of political action, they thrive in secrecy. They thrive in the fact that citizens do not know who's behind the attacks. So continuous naming and shaming of the individuals behind these kinds of attacks is critical. Definitely holding institutions that are responsible for providing safety, not just for politicians, but also citizens, accountable is also critical. The member of parliament for Kasipul Kabondo, I'm not going to call him honorable for now, considering what we've discovered after his death, had spoken quite early to indicate that his life was in danger. And in Kenya, you are innocent until proven guilty. So he may have committed all kinds of crimes, but he needed to have been taken through due process. Once he complains that his life is in danger, you expect that the security systems will take action and ensure that then they're providing more security for him until they identify who is coming for his life, why, and stop the danger towards him. That did not happen. The ability to call out, first of all, to document, and then call out the security agencies that had documented evidence and did nothing about it is extremely critical in ensuring that then we push the agencies that are supposed to ensure this safety to account. The third one is to ask questions of certain agencies that are now allowing themselves to be used. Ash, I'm sure you would remember that the ESCC has always written to government officials, written to politicians, written to MPs and all other actors, and invited them to come to the ESCC headquarters for whatever investigations they want to do. Normally, they publicize this communication for a while. If the officer or the state, the public officer or the state officer who's being invited refuses to show up, that is when then a warrant of arrest is released on this kind of person. What changed? The question we should be asking ourselves is what changed? If you want to know that there's political interference with how the ESCC is engaging the people they're supposed to be charging for corruption, then you would know by virtue of the fact that they jumped onto arrest. And this, public show of antagonism, just so that they can achieve a certain end. That even if this person gets arrested and there's nothing to eat, the public will be left thinking that he had a case to answer. I think it's a political witch hunt that is unacceptable. The ESCC has a procedure that is known to Kenyans, and I think that is why they met the wrath of citizens at Natembeya's home. This is not going to be unique to Natembeya's home. Kenyans are so angry, and for some reason the government is refusing to believe that Kenyans are angry. Unfortunately, that anger is even going to stop you from arresting people who should legally be arrested. It is better off if you invite these officers to come, make it public, let everybody know that you're inviting these people, and if they refuse, let the citizens know that you invited this person and you have this kind of evidence against them, and they refuse to show up, that you have grounds to come and arrest them. The last one, Ash, is to actually hold some of these officers accountable. if we can go to court, if we can write petitions to Parliament to demand the removal of some of these public officers that are responsible for security, it would really be helpful for Kenyans, because now it looks like it's political witch hunt between politicians and politicians. Very soon, when we get deep into the finance bill conversations, or come next election, it will be citizens like you and I, and we cannot afford to wait for that time.
All right, and it's a good thing you've mentioned the issue of accountability. I mean, we've been talking about delayed justice day in, day out. And now critics are arguing that the country is slipping into a two-tier justice system, one for government allies and another for critics. Do you agree with the same?
I agree, absolutely. I agree absolutely that the country is slipping into a two-tier system. Unfortunately, it's slipping into a two-tier system, and the polls around it are not polls that would have otherwise been accepted in Kenya, even before the promulgation of our new constitution. With our current constitution, the voice of citizens is prime. With our current constitution, power belongs to the people, and the people exercise it in any way they would want to exercise it, and delegate it to public officers. Once you delegate it to public officers, they cannot again be the people who determine that you are worthy to enjoy the privileges of our constitution because you support them, and you're unworthy to enjoy the privileges of our constitution because you do not support them. Ash, I have been in this studio before, and I said one of the biggest mistakes we made was to elect a government led by an individual who demonstrated without fear and without shame that he did not support the 2010 constitution. Unfortunately, that is a mistake, because then when he comes in, he tries to push back on the gains made from that constitution. Not agreeing with a leader should not be a reason for an individual in a state to be denied their rights. Unfortunately, it seems like there's a disease that is moving around the East African region and generally the continent, where we have elected people with self-esteem issues, people with mental health issues, who do not take criticism, who do not believe in consultation with individuals, people who were brought up thinking that they are right in every way, and so they have difficulty participating in a space where there are many more individuals to be consulted before a decision is made.
Okay.
If Kenyans tell you they do not want something, the bottom line is that they do not want it. And if you're a leader of a nation that believes in democracy, that has a constitution that promotes the voice of the people, you then listen to the voice of the people. You don't force those things down the throats of Kenyans or any nation. And so for me, targeting individuals in our society who have decided to speak against what the government is doing is problematic. Trying to sweep the historical injustices that have happened in the past under the carpet does not resolve them. Just because Kenyans are not speaking about these things does not mean that they are not being discussed at their dinner tables. You may shut them up for a very long time. You may shut up the former deputy president, shut up the Honorable Natembea, but at the end of the day, you cannot shut up all of Kenyans, and eventually their voice will stand. So I think the sooner we realize that we are in trouble, and if we allow this trend to continue, we will destroy what we call our nation, the better, and the sooner we will then take action to deliberately stop this madness from going on in our nation.
Okay. And you've said the issue is not just isolated to Kenya, it's the entire region. I mean, we have seen what happened during the weekend. Former Chief Justice Willy Mutunga, Vocal Africa CEO Hussein Khalid, among others, were detained, including Martha Karua, who was detained and deported. I believe Boniface Mwangi is still in Tanzania, if I'm not wrong. But let's just speak to the wider issue of transnational politics. Shouldn't they apply in such a case?
You know, let me first of all start by saying that as a region, we are in a very, very delicate situation. Many may not have noticed, but we are at crossroads as the East Africa region. I think for a region that was performing the best as far as an organized regional economic community is concerned, I mean, compared to all the other regions, East Africa community was the most organized, with systems, with legislations, with policies, you know, with protocols that govern the way things are run. And one of those protocols was the one on free movement of people. The one on free movement of people has advanced so far, Ash, that we have come to the point where we have the East African passport. So we have long transitioned from that place where you have a passport for your country, you know, for your individual nation. And so when you see the kinds of things that we are seeing in Tanzania, it goes to tell you that some of us may have been moving in spirit and in the physical towards a unified region, but there are people who may have just been moving physically, but then deep down in their spirits, they are still drawn back to their nationality, which is problematic. Especially it is a demonstration of lack of trust, but it is also symptomatic of what we are seeing globally, where we have moved into a certain direction towards globalization, and then we just see a reversal back into inward-looking foreign policies, where countries now want to go back into their small conclaves. That's number one. Number two, most of the nations in this region are signatories to the United Declaration on Human Rights. And therefore, they have a responsibility to uphold those declarations, especially because most of them have, to an advanced stage, even committed to be reporting back on their performance on those. Most of the nations in the region are subject to the Africa Peer Review Mechanism that also has certain yardsticks that are supposed to be achieved as far as freedom of individuals, the rights of freedom of association and movement is guaranteed. Most of these nations are also a part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which also has a component that requires that people move freely and trade freely. The thing with the East Africa Community, Ash, is that we also have a common market protocol that then allows us to trade freely across the region, to be employed freely across the region, as long as we fulfill certain requirements. The Honorable Martha Karua actually acquired status to be able to have standing in the courts in Tanzania as an advocate, even before she embarked on the assignment of actually going to observe the process that Tundu Lissu is going through right now in Tanzania. So in terms of standing, she has standing all the way to the courts. Any individual in this region is free to enter any country in this region as long as they are not a criminal. I don't remember any of the people we have seen on TV having any criminal records in those nations, least of all Tanzania. And so walking into Tanzania should be something that they should be allowed to do. They should be allowed to operate in Tanzania freely until they are found to be committing a crime. Now, Boni may be popular for his trade and what he does, but he has not yet done anything criminal in Tanzania, and therefore there are no grounds as to why he should have been picked up from his hotel and be put in court. I will tell you, these are the signs of another nation where we have a leader with low self-esteem, a leader who does not believe that they need to be challenged, a leader who does not believe that they need to be questioned, and a leader who believes they are the most entitled to be sitting in the position that they are in. Number two, and most important, this is symptomatic of a problem that this region should have acted fast to address. Tanzania has been quietly in this state. It's just now that the noise is coming out openly because you know the way changes happen in our society and spaces are opened up for democracy and people start participating more and understanding the laws. Unfortunately, now the system that they have been trying to hold on to has been beaten by time. And so nature itself is forcing Tanzania to walk into a space where the citizens' voices will matter. The situation between CCM and Chadema is similar to the situation that we had with KANU and the first opposition in Kenya. They are far behind as far as their voice is concerned. Their attempt at having Gen Z protests were thwarted by people being arrested the day before the protests at home, which means these people were being arrested in anticipation of their crimes. It's quite problematic when that happens, especially because this nation is party to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. This is not unique to Tanzania. Look at a country like South Sudan. I mean, they have all kinds of conflicts arising from conflicts between at the head of state and some of the deputy presidents. A nation that has had multiple numbers of deputy presidents because they can't practically agree on a lot of things, and therefore they have to have their interests represented by small factions. I will not even talk about Rwanda. We understand exactly what is happening in Rwanda. So the region is generally very sick. The region is struggling with the political fabric that we have created, and the region is also struggling under the weight of a young, educated, politically astute and woke generation that will not watch them continue to squander what is left of our nations. And if we do not find a way to harness that energy from the young generation and ensure that then there's proper transition, we leave the bad manners behind and elect the right people, it would be extremely problematic. The last thing I'll say on this before I come back to you, Ash, is the fact that when people show us their character, we should believe them. Her Excellency, I don't know whether I should be calling her Excellency now, Madam Suluhu was the deputy of the late Magufuli at the time, yes, president, around which time this same man was shot at and almost killed. As a matter of fact, the man came to get treatment in Kenya, and I'm not surprised that Kenya still has solidarity with him, because the first time he was assaulted, it's Kenya that actually provided space at Nairobi Hospital for him to be treated before he was flown to Brussels. We now find ourselves in a situation where the deputy president in that government found her way into the presidency, and she's behaving the same way. Sometimes it's not just about the fact that somebody is a woman, or they are young, or they are what they claim that they are born again, or whatever it is. We truly need to look underneath the surface of the individuals who say they want to be leaders in our region, because their true character shows up when they actually get the power in their hands. Have they been tested in spaces where they had power or absolute power? How did they behave around that power? If at the time she was deputy president and they presided over this kind of thing, she may have shown up in hospital and visited him and shown solidarity. Then it should have been understood that when she gets a chance, she would use the same mechanism. So it is no surprise that her administration has now decided to practically exclude the opposition from the elections, and to arrest anybody who will try to suggest that the environment for elections is supposed to be more fair. You know, there are so many improprieties in this election. If there was nothing to fear, the government of Tanzania and all the actors in the state of Tanzania should have allowed observers to come in and report and tell their story to the world, so that the rest of the world learns from them. These actions are a sign that there is definitely something to question in the way elections are being carried out in Tanzania.
Okay, and you know, you've talked about the fact that this region is sick, and this has long-term implications if we do not treat this problem. So from where you sit then, for lack of a better way of expressing it, how do we promote that spirit of Ubuntu back to the region, where it's not just Tanzania has their own problems and they stick to their own problems, Kenyans have their own problems and they stick to that, and Uganda and so on? How do we stand up as one and, you know, take the region forward?
I think one of the first things that must happen is that the leadership of the region must sit down and hold Tanzania to account. The beauty of it is that the East Africa community has mechanisms for that to happen. A lot of that may have been broken down at the start of the conflict between Rwanda and DRC. Especially because at the time the chair of the Heads of State Summit, who is the president of Kenya, may have goofed around how he handled that situation. But the accountability mechanisms within the East Africa community exist, and they should be able to hold talks that then will resolve some of these issues that are happening in Tanzania. I can assure you that Tanzania is very, very afraid of bad media. Tanzania loves operating under a very good reputation, and I'm certain that they are really struggling right now, because even when they have excesses that interfere with the human rights of individuals in their country, they would prefer that it happens without anybody knowing. So right now, they would grab any opportunity to salvage the face of the nation. And so I think the EAC needs to just pull together and convene around these matters, and also invite elders in the region who will then help address the matters that we find ourselves in. The beauty of it is that we have a few former heads of states who are still alive, with the kind of wisdom that is required to call everybody back to order and bring us back to a place where we have an understanding that we need to uphold what the EAC stands for. Number two is to invest heavily in the Peace and Security Department of the East Africa Community, because too many conflicts have been allowed to continue in the region unabated, and now they are building forces that are causing faults across the entire EAC region. I think we have sufficient early warning systems, both supported by national governments, supported by the EAC, as well as civil society organizations, that have constantly given a barometer of where we are headed as far as conflict is concerned. The fact that now there are some of the areas where it was just warnings about conflict coming are now in conflict, like Somalia, which is now a member of the EAC, actually the most recent member of the EAC. Sudan, which may not necessarily be a member of the EAC, but is a neighbor to South Sudan that is already in conflict, and of course those conflicts have a bearing to each other. The fact that places where it was just a warning that there's going to be political unrest, and now there's unrest, like Tanzania, is a sign that there are so many early warning systems that were ignored. Activating those early warning systems and ensuring that when it is anticipated that a conflict is going to arise, it is addressed before it happens, would be extremely critical. The last one, because this region is supposed to be having a conversation about political federation, which is the next step after the monetary union, I think that those conversations should be held with the current struggles in mind. And I think if the political federation of the region is achieved, having resolved the current issues and the triggers for the current issues, it would make it a better political federation. It will make it a stronger region, because then we'll have figured out what causes the fault lines in our nations, what causes the fault lines in the region, and how can we ensure that then we collapse or we shut down the triggers that normally activate those kinds of conflicts. And I think the last one is for all the nations in the East Africa community to engage in introspection. Engage in introspection, because I am convinced that the yardsticks, the benchmarks by which we are electing leaders are faulty. They are faulty, and that is why we are constantly elevating the wrong people into leadership, and then they get into regional conversations and they negotiate us into the kind of conflict that we find ourselves in. Not just the benchmark that we elect our leaders with, but also what do we use to test if our leader is driven internally by their personal and national interests on elections, and to what extent are they driven by external interests.
Okay.
Some of the conflicts we have in the region, for example, from the DRC, have got nothing to do with the continent. It's because they're driven by foreign interests. How does Kenya, for example, ensure that in this coming election, we root out any individual who is sponsored by foreign interests, who will then come and pull in the opposite direction when it comes to addressing the interests of the region? I think we have a few culprits in the current government who are advancing foreign interests. We have a few candidates already in the list of people who are claiming that they want to be presidents in Kenya, who fall on that list. And I think even as a region, we have several leaders who are puppets of nations outside the continent of Africa. Are we able to address that extensively and ensure that every citizen in the region knows what tool to use? And even if it's not every citizen, at least ensuring that we have a cohort of people who are able to sit down, analyze the list, and bring the information to the citizens of the region. This can no longer be a secretive thing that we discuss in closed spaces and then we let it go, because as you can see, it's threatening the core of the East Africa community, a region that had created the best functioning REC, as far as all the RECs that are under the AU are concerned. And so if the EAC collapses, what is the hope for ECOWAS? What is the hope for SADC? What is the hope for the ECAS and Maghreb region, who are yet to even come to a place where they have a structured regional economic community compared to the East Africa community? There's something to save in this region. And I think some of the people that we should even be calling to right now, Ash, even for the Tanzania situation, is the former president, Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, who has also been quite a proponent of the East Africa community. He has participated heavily in promoting some of the agenda of the East Africa community, including the building of this road that connects Tanzania and Kenya through Arusha. He worked very closely with former President Kibaki to build that road, and now it's such a beautiful ride to connect and go there and use the airport either in Arusha or in Kenya.
Okay.
Speaking to that kind of individual who's also a mentor to the Honorable Samia Suluhu, and getting them to begin participating in addressing the issues that face our region, because they have a legacy to maintain.
Okay, that's a really good place to end this conversation. Thank you, Stella Gara, who's a governance and security analyst. Always a pleasure having you, and I hope soon I'll be bringing you to studio so we can tackle these issues inland. All right, that's how we wrap things up here on KTN Prime. Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. I'm Ashley Mazuri. Our sign language interpreter was Preeti Janet. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.